So, very, very warm welcome to everybody that's listening on the Quantum Time Traveler for viewers and listeners of this very special guest appearance by Andrew Eggleton. Andrew Eggleton, welcome, welcome. I'm going to allow you to take over this space just to introduce yourself, what you gift to the world in your presence, and just explain a little bit about you.
Okay, I'm going to give this a shot. All right. Hmm. First thing you'll notice from my accent is I'm either Australian or New Zealand, but I'm a New Zealander living in Australia, who makes frequent trips to UK. What do I do? I've been in entertainment and TV for since 1994, and the thread that has remained the same throughout my career is a desire to understand and then teach back what authenticity is when it comes to being on camera or presenting and communicating. That thread is the one common denominator, and it's moved from acting to TV presenting to public speaking, and now I teach back to other people. And I was explaining this a little bit earlier, that the easiest way to articulate what I do is I'm good at chipping away at everything that is not you. So I think Michelangelo was quoted as saying, when he was asked, how did you create the statue of David? And he said, it was simple. I just chipped away everything that wasn't David. So people tend to push or project when they're working, when they're presenting, when they're interacting, when they're on camera, and there's a desire or a need, and then a need to be something more than what you are, because perhaps that's what we're taught. And my job is to strip that back to where it just is, all that's left is you. And it's a really beautiful feeling because you're able to feel the simplicity of actually doing nothing. That's the beauty. It's effortless, and that's how presenting is meant to be. And when you think about that, is if energy is information, which I'm hoping we kind of agree that it is,
Yeah,
then your audience is receiving a clear message, and as clear as it can get. And you and I worked in London, and you saw me working in that way, and there's a feeling you got to watch lots of people work that you can see, maybe not see, you can feel the difference. Like you can see the heads nodding in the room when they hit that sweet spot of it's effortless. I'm not
yeah,
pushing. It's like a sensational reality.
yeah. So, very thank you. So, I'd just like for you to speak your truth, and this is about just stripping back, almost like my pod and my viewers see everything stripped back so that you can feel this experience now, because I've felt that experience when you were talking as much as I
Mm.
did when I was present. I was able to um be impacted by Andrew's work in London, and I think for me, seeing and understanding your ability to reconnect people to their truth or their essence or their who they are,
Mm.
without, I'm going to be blunt, without the bullshit of what they think they should be doing or being, or having learned to bad habits, or all the
Yeah.
things that maybe they have um, picked up along the way from other people or other influences that they want to desire to speak like or look up to or be inspired by. But actually, the whole essence of this is about who are you and what
Yeah.
do
And
you
that's,
give in your
yeah, good.
gift, in your truth, in your voice.
Yeah. And that's why many speakers don't stand out. It's very vanilla because you're there modeling off somebody else, or they're pulled into the projection of that they need to be more than what they are, or this is what a presenter looks like. I'm inspiring. So presenters are meant to be inspiring. So I'm going to show you inspiring. But if you pull that back and if I asked you, Emma, are you inspiring? That's a rhetorical question because I do find you inspiring. Then Emma doesn't have to do anything. Do I think I'm inspiring? Yeah, I do. If I ask myself that question, I can go humbly, so humbly, I can go, yeah, I am. I think I am. So therefore, I don't need to show inspiring. I don't need to show that I'm likable. I don't need to show that I'm smart because these are the things that I generally think that I am. And if you are those things, you don't need to show them. So when people tend to project, is the things, if there's a ripple, I would, how I feel it, because I don't really look at people when I work with them, I tend to just listen and feel. I can feel a ripple. And the ripple is the part where I come back to and go, no, what happened just here?
Yeah.
What's the projection? What are you trying to show me? And that's the part where I have to like dig it out or carve it off. Yeah.
Yeah. So in essence, so we're working in synergy now with our energy because I would then translate that as an interference. So you
Mm,
see that as a ripple. I see that as an interference of something's off and something's not quite at there in the way they're speaking. So it's a vibrational discord of
mm,
untruth or something sitting there, right? Whether
mm,
that's a learning or whether that's a fear or whether that's a belief. So
mm.
I'm just giving that out there for the audience in thoughts, vibrational thoughts and behavior and things like that come into this because actually that ripple is just an energetic interference. Do you agree?
Well, I agree. And you just mentioned the word fear, and fear can be covered up with someone who doesn't believe that you're meant to show that you're nervous on stage because that's what you're told, which is bollocks, really,
Yeah,
isn't it? Because I'd rather see someone who comes out and goes, I'm so shit scared. And I go, oh, you too. Instead of seeing someone who's got a bravado, or I'm completely disconnected from them because I'm like, I don't know what's going on,
yeah.
but you're not here. You're not here with me.
It's almost like another persona or another ego part of yourself is stepping forward and
Yeah,
showing
completely.
them, showing not, say for this example, not the Andrew or that
Yeah.
Andrew. Um, they're showing another Andrew.
Yeah, their fantasy. So that if authenticity sat on a timeline,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a timeline. I'm gonna find something to make this work. The fantasy is this is how I imagine myself to be at my best. So
Yeah.
you're fantasizing about something and you're then trying to imitate that on stage. The
Yes.
past is when you're trying to be that time that I was engaging at the party. I had a couple of beers. I was amazing. People were drawn to me. I remember that time on stage, and I was just in my zone. And so you try to replicate that every time, but that's not you right now. And so that's not, and so the only piece that's really real is right now. Otherwise, you're in the future or the past. So when we can understand and appreciate who I am right now, where that's what just be you means. That's because it's a terrible piece of advice. Just if my advice to you is just be you, well, what part? What do you
Yeah.
want from me? And
Yeah.
when I was working in TV, I guess, not I guess, I know where my curiosity would come from is directors would keep saying, Andrew, just be you. Like, don't do that, just be you. And you're going, well, that's like what? I am being me. So what do you want? Until I worked out that they wanted this version of me. They
Yes.
wanted shoulders back, smiley, happy. Hey, I'm Andrew Eggleton and welcome to da, da, da. And so it wasn't just be me at all.
Yeah.
What they really needed to say was, I want that, Andrew. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not just be you. That's terrible advice. Tell me that you want 50% more energy, engaging, show my teeth, and pretend that I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if I turn up, this is how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. So with that in mind then, and that moment of acting as
Mm,
another person, which is part of your, well, massive part of your 30 years of your journey from acting to now going into such beautiful redefinement, and also the truth of presenting as yourself and for other people to connect with themselves. So that moment where you stopped acting to almost reconnect with yourself, to go into this, your business that is thriving now.
yeah.
What happened? Where did you go to reconnect?
I've actually had. I feel like I know what you're asking, but I want to add at the beginning. I've had multiple reconnects, and
Yeah,
each time have always been at a pinnacle of my career.
yeah,
And I've stopped at a point where I'm like, this isn't spinning my wheels anymore. And I've trusted my need to go and reconnect. So first time was around 1999, and I ended up just driving my car back down to my mum and dad's and taking 9 months off. And I just
okay.
played golf and drank Guinness. And I was so happy that all of a sudden my agent just kept ringing and ringing and ringing until I got so many good opportunities. I was like, I can't say no to this anymore. Then that had a big crescendo. And then I disappeared. I was like, oh, you know what? This isn't enough. I'm now becoming a celebrity in New Zealand, but I can't see what I'm good at yet. And I want to be good at something for my integrity. And so I took off to an island called Waiheke off the coast of Auckland. And I lived there for, 2 years.
Okay.
And I grew a big and had a vegetable garden. And I didn't really do much work. I just went inward and I kind of had this moment where it was like, okay, and you got to get back into the real world. And there was a slog out of that.
Yeah.
I got a couple of good breaks, and then I had probably the apex of my career so far during that time from 2026 to 2011. It was really, really hard working. And in 2011, I started to go, which is the back end of the financial crisis. And I was working harder for less. And I just started to notice my mood changing, and I wasn't getting the joy that I seek out of my work. And so I moved to Bali.
Okay.
2011 was like one of probably the most happiest year of my life. It was I was so present. I didn't need to, if I ever went to get up to go somewhere, I would go, well, where are you going? Like, oh, well, I'm going here. And then I would like, well, why is there more better than here? And I'm like, oh, I've got a really good point. So I just stayed where I was, chat to anyone who would want to chat. And I was incredibly present. So it was a really beautiful feeling to be in. And then I was still doing a bit of flying back and forth to New Zealand to do work. And then I remember getting up one morning in Bali, and things had just shifted. I was looking down at my feet and I was like, oh, wow. I never thought I would wake up one morning and not know what I wanted to do, because since 1994, I'd always known. Like every morning, it was like, okay, this has been a tough 6 months, a tough year, but I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I want to be on TV. I want this show. I want this. I want this. And that drove me. And I think when I started to understand what a large driver was in my 20s and 30s, is a large part of driver is ego.
Yeah.
And that's not to say it's a bad thing. I just want to frame that up and put that out there, is that the ego is, I'm going to prove them wrong, or
Yeah.
I'm going to my school teachers that I could make something of myself.
Yeah.
Uh, I want to be famous. I want to be on TV. I want to feel that significance. Those are the things that drive you. And in the days that are hard, they get you out of bed. It's like, no, I'm going to show you. But then as you get, I think it was probably late 30s. Yeah, it was late 30s, even around 40. It was like, oh, that's not driving me. I feel like I want to do something more meaningful. More meaningful, have a different kind of impact where it's less about me. Don't get me wrong, I love things being about me. So there's still that aspect because my level of craft will bring that sense of significance to me. So that created that sense of a desire to get into mastery, but also now going, well, how do I teach back what I've learned over all these years and speed these people's process up by decades, literally decades. If I can figure out how to teach someone and in a day what just be you feels like and looks like and give them a 1 + 1 = 2 to do it,
Yeah.
then I've spent up probably 20 years.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting point because without that deepening of coming from a place of proving on an egotistical level, which a lot of people are driven by, a lot of people are learned and taught a certain way of being, in their families, in their societies, in their environments. So they go out to prove something to other people, more so than to themselves, and then they come back to this place of hopefully come back to this place of actually I'm not deepening myself here, I'm not deepening my work, I can't touch what I'm. It's almost like you had to reconnect that part of yourself which was that joy or that desire, that heart, of your work, to be able to then deepen it, to give to back, like you're saying, give back to other people, to show them that experience of what they have to fall into that depth to be able to be them.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
is.
that's a really important part of craft, I think, because for you to having to have gone through that experience that you've kindly shared your deepening with, you've been able to then experience that in your work now further,
Mm.
which then draws people into the craft of themselves in that deeper level, but actually with the results that is what you're all about, which is leading
Mm.
from that place.
Yeah, look, there's the space in between is quite uncomfortable. We all
Yeah,
know that.
very.
Yeah. And I will be really clear, if you're miserable at home or in UK or New Zealand, going to Bali doesn't fix it. It means you're
Yeah.
just miserable in Bali. So
Yes. You can be
it might
anywhere,
all
right?
you can be anywhere. No tropical island is going to change it. It might lessen it for a novelty factor for a little while, but at the end of the day, you're still left with how you're thinking and where you are. And if you don't know why you're getting out of bed in the morning anymore, and you need that, then yeah, there's a search. And for me, it was like I don't know what I want to do anymore. And so I had to kind of I had to go to discover that again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the fact that you did that actually, rather than a lot of people deal with these things in different ways,
yeah.
um, um, in more toxic ways than you did. Okay, it's still deep and it's still really uncomfortable, and the spaces were always uncomfortable. But without the space, you can't grow,
Mm.
and you just stay in that space. But the fact that you have shown where and what you did with it and shared it here with us, to then be where you are now and helping and the impact that you're having with your clients and the way that you mentor and guide people and share this um, very brilliant gift that's yours
Mm.
in a very different way. And all I'm going to say to people, and you can find out more about Andrew and his work, and I'm going to leave you with that sense of, yes, I've got to find out a little bit more about it because it's in a very distinct and unprecedented way of teaching that is refreshing, actually.
How would you describe it? How would in
Um,
your word?
See, I work very similarly in an energetic where I work on purity of energy and no interference is the best form of any pure um, energetic. So what I mean by that is how I felt is it felt very familiar to me because that's how I work. I
Mm.
work with that clarity. However, what I didn't expect was when you're stood in front of, and this is for people that know that they have issues with speaking up, issues with being fearful of sharing, and want a message out there that they need to have it heard and be seen and heard, and all the things that we want to be able to do. It's very easy to fall into the traps of shit. It should be like this. I should
Mm.
be speaking louder. I've got to be this. Who am I in this energy of being seen and heard in front of all these people? Because it's exposing
Mm.
when you're not used to it and guided through it.
Mm.
And I fell into the trap of that when I experienced a day with Andrew and a group of people. It's like, holy shit, I'm now in front of all these people. What am I speaking about? How am I showing up? What is my message?
Mm.
And I know that was different with the exercise that we did in that I wasn't speaking about my message, but yet all of those insecurities, all of those learnings or teachings or ego, whatever you want to call it, comes up. It throws itself at you. And it's
Mm.
about being guided then with yourself to actually you let them just breathe and you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, and then elevate the key first is to get to you,
Yeah.
and then elevating you with tools of the craft.
Yeah.
So it's I, getting given the tools, all the tools you need to get the job done,
Yeah.
and then allowing the tools to do the job for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just let the way that you make this sound or use your voice or
Yeah.
let these things do it for you.
Yeah.
Mm.
So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask you something
Okay.
about something that is not widely known about yourself, Andrew, even though you shared quite a lot here today. Something unique about you that you'd like to reveal that you like doing that's not common knowledge yet.
Mm. Not common knowledge yet until now. Is this that I seek out really deep water?
Yeah, yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. That's my
So
favorite.
tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, when I was living I've always loved swimming underwater. It's one of my happy places, but I've never known how to do it properly. So when I was in Bali, I learned how to free dive and, equalize and make sure I didn't feel like my ears were going to explode and learn how to breathe and expand my lungs better to get more air so I could go down deeper. And I discovered it's the most beautiful and peaceful place that I've ever found. And it was actually underwater where I discovered the third person. And I'll explain what I mean. The first person was if you panic underwater, you use up more oxygen.
Yeah.
Right? So more oxygen, you don't have what you anticipated to get up to the top, and then you might have a shallow water blackout, which is not good, especially when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So I just went, I was nice and deep. It was like my first day or two, and I was down about 25 meters. And as I was going up, I started to panic, like physically. because the oxygen's turning to, I think it's carbon monoxide. So that's the burn, right? And we think we're running out of oxygen. It's not. It's just the exchange of those two. And so that carbon dioxide burns the lungs. And so my feet started panicking and kicking harder to get up. And I was like, whoa, 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 calm down. So my brain started to panic. And then, so my brain was telling my body, and then I suddenly caught third person who was like, hey, brain, calm down. I was like, oh my God, who just said that? And I was having this little epiphany as I was coming up through the water, and I got up and I was, when you're really excited when you've just had this new understanding of the universe or yourself. And I got up and I was like so excited. And my dive instructor said, I was explaining, he goes, oh, you just discovered the third person, did you? I was like, yeah, I did. So it's nice. What that did was give me more control over my own mind, realizing that there's this third part that can be that voice of reason and discipline. But this is why I go to Greece as much as I can, because the water over there, one, it doesn't have sharks. So I don't like free diving in Australia, by the way. I get really
or you dive
self-critical,
very far.
paranoid. I get paranoid in the water in Australia.
Yeah,
So I love going to Greece where it's that crystal clear water and you can dive super deep and you can still see the shards of light coming down through the deep
beautiful.
water. And that's perfect. I did learn don't dive after seafood or rosé.
Yeah, well,
It comes.
that's what crazy New Zealander would do, isn't it?
It would be, yeah. A glutton for punishment. Mm.
So I'm just before I'm going to let you go, but that third person, would you say that's it's interesting you call it a third person. I call it spirit. I call it intuition,
Yeah.
whatever you want to deem. It's lots of people might call it lots of things. So you call it a third person. Would you say that's your intuitiveness?
I think it was just a label at the time. I mean, one was the
Yeah,
physical, one was my brain, my mind, and then something was outside my mind telling my mind to calm down.
yeah,
So for me, it was like the third thing, but you might call it consciousness, or you might call it. For me, it was just easy, but I think we're on the same page of what it is.
yeah. I'm
It's
just interested because a lot of people call things different things. There is no right or wrong, and it's interesting how the experience of that connected you to that third person.
Yeah, well, I speak about God a lot, but I'm not religious. I speak about God. And this is funny. One of the attendees said, "Oh, it was really good that you brought this religious thing to the evening," and it was because I'd used the word Jesus and God. But when I said use the word Jesus, I was being funny and going, just go with Jesus. And the God thing was unless you have tools of the craft you can have these powerful moments where God works through you, but if you don't have the tools, God can't do anything. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah,
So if it's like a painter, if you don't know how to paint
yeah,
and hold a brush and do the strokes, then you can have the most powerful godly impulse through you.
yeah,
If you don't know how to express
yeah,
that,
yeah. It's almost like a
that's
landing, isn't it? It's almost it has to have a landing point
yeah,
to base
yeah.
that
How do
on.
you that's what your great dancers or artists express. It's you have those artistic when God works through you, and then they're able to express it,
Yeah,
and that's a really beautiful feeling.
awesome. Well, thank you for
Mm,
sharing. Thank you for being here.
thank
And
you.
everything that to find out more about Andrew is within this episode. And go find out more because it's amazing.
Thank you very much. Look at you with the morning
I know.
light.
Morning light on me. Beautiful.
Yeah,
And we'll leave that beautiful image there. Thank you so
perfect.
much, everyone, for listening and viewing. And thank you, Andrew.
Pleasure.